Hey everyone, welcome to Redmen TV. I'm Ste Hoare, bringing you a clip from this week's Journal Insight Show. Each and every week over on redmenplus.com, we talk to the Liverpool Echo's Paul Gorst. You're about to see a clip from that show in which we discussed Anthony Gordon, the timeline of events leading to him and Liverpool having conversations, and Newcastle and PSR. We spoke about all that, plus what's to come. Is there any chance of this move happening before the transfer deadline day? So yeah, check out this clip from the show, and if you go and watch it in full over at redmenplus.com. Let's move on then. The title of the show, Paul, was about Anthony Gordon. Obviously, it's a few days removed from the chaos that was you. Again, I remember texting you when you were at the races. So you were a busy day for everybody involved.
Yeah,
but
it's usually not at the races. That makes a change.
Did you win any money?
No.
Oh, no, it's typical.
No.
Absolutely. We had a good time had by all. Let's talk the Anthony Gordon timeline then, Paul, because it is fascinating because I can say this from the outside, you don't say it, like, it feels like there's been all different, like, not PR spin, but like different stories to different places and people trying to get their version of events out there.
Yeah.
And as a fan, or like myself, it's trying to piece together the exact timeline. So if you don't mind, I'd like your help. Was this a simple case of Newcastle had this PSR deadline, they were worried of going over it, and therefore they were offering certain players to certain clubs, and knowing that Liverpool liked Anthony Gordon, they made the approach and said, anything to be done here? That's my understanding.
Yeah, as far as we understand it, that's sort of how it shook out. And there's been a couple of different sort of timelines on this, hasn't it? And you know, depending on what pieces you read, and obviously everyone's got different sources, different people are speaking to, and certainly with journalists who are connected to Newcastle, there might be one or two things that might jar with what we're hearing from the Liverpool end, but all things are pointing towards Newcastle had a big sort of black hole that they needed to fill in terms of PSR. Yeah. PSR deadline was Sunday, wasn't it? June 30th, and depending on who you spoke to, that was anywhere between sort of 60 and even 100 million. So Newcastle needed to fill it as best they could, and by sort of, what was it, Thursday or Friday, they didn't have too many options on the table. You know, Yankuba Minter had no desire to move before Brighton sort of stepped in, and Elliot Anderson was a late deal to Forest as well. So Newcastle essentially think that they've filled that void, like I say, but at the time there was plenty of panic going on at Newcastle, and Anthony Gordon was someone who was offered up, and Liverpool, you know, full of admiration for the player. You know, I don't think they made too much of a secret of that. In all honesty, at 23 now, England international, really kicked on, hasn't he, since he went from Everton to Newcastle, made himself an England international, a real big star for them last season. I think it was 11 goals and 10 assists, I think. Season, yeah. Champions League experience now as well, of course, having played in that group alongside some real Champions League level opponents, you know, Dortmund, who were the finalists, AC Milan and Paris Saint-Germain. So, you know, Liverpool do like the player, but if there's an area of the pitch where they're well stocked, there probably is that left wing forward area, isn't it? You know, Luis Diaz, Diogo Jota, Darwin Núñez, and like we're seeing at the moment, Cody Gakpo, who's absolutely flourishing for the Dutch, isn't he? And I think there's a conversation to be had there about maybe switching him more permanently when he gets back from the Euros, given the manager will know all about him, having made his name at PSV and in Dutch football and so on. So I think Liverpool are quite comfortable that at the moment they don't need anyone else in that position. So I'm pretty sure the valuation that was placed on him last week will be significantly lower than what Newcastle would expect for him if they look to sell him now. But I'm not too sure whether this one is totally dead in the water, but I think it will require quite a bit of movement on certain parts, i.e. Luis Diaz, before we hear it's been revived. Yeah,
let's move on to the offer itself then, because there was a lot of reports out there that Newcastle were interested in Jarell Quansah being part of that deal. And Liverpool, quite rightly, I would suggest, just didn't entertain that whatsoever. Yeah. Is that one of the reasons that it was so quickly shut down? Is that, like, I'm thinking from a Liverpool standpoint, as soon as you hear a player being involved, there might be some speculation that, well, Liverpool were offering that player, but actually it was the other way around. They wanted him, and Liverpool were quite keen to go, no, that's not happening.
Yeah, I think this is the kind of key indicator that suggests that maybe Liverpool's version is the one that's correct, because Liverpool wouldn't be offering off Jarell Quansah in any negotiations. He's only just broken into the first team. He's still on, you know, junior wages, isn't he? I expect that will be assessed at some point, and he'll get a new contract, and it'll be fully deserved. He's played himself to the fringes of the England squad, and once this European Championship's over, I do expect him to feature more prominently for England going forward if he sort of maintains this trajectory. So, yeah, Liverpool absolutely not in any negotiations to move Jarell Quansah onwards. And I've seen Joe Gomez mentioned in a report earlier this week. That's not any information that we've had. Quansah is someone who Newcastle did sort of float as an idea as part of a player plus cash offer. It's easy for me to say that one, but Liverpool got no intention of letting Quansah go. They see him as a mainstay of the first team for the future, and he was first choice, wasn't he, by the end of the season? So that was one that was never going to happen, really. Yeah,
moving along the timeline, then obviously the deadline passed. Newcastle think they've met what they needed to meet with the Minter sales and the Elliot Anderson sale. But the reporting since then has been actually Anthony Gordon's head might have been turned. He really wants to move. It appears, Paul, like you need 3 parties to make a move, and actually the person most keen for that to happen, or the party, was the Anthony Gordon party. Like Liverpool, we've got left wingers, and we don't want to lose Jarell Quansah. Newcastle, we've got this PSR, but we'd rather do it in other ways. But actually, again, is your understanding, like the Gordon camp are the ones who were really keen for this to happen, because that seems to be the report. Again, from the Newcastle side, I saw Luke Edwards' report this morning again saying, his agent was pushing for the deal. He was talking about it to his England teammates that this was something that could happen. It feels like the Gordon camp in particular were the ones who were really keen for this move to take place.
Yeah, I mean, he's made no secrets, has he, of his admiration of Liverpool in recent weeks. I think he described Steven Gerrard as his idol a few weeks ago, and there was a Little England TikTok, wasn't it, a couple of weeks ago, where they're sort of asking the members of the squad what's the best atmosphere you played in, and Gordon says St James's Park aside, he obviously has to say that, and he just waxes lyrical about Anfield. Even as an Everton player who probably got booed when he played for Everton at Anfield, it certainly left an impression on him, and that was a little bit of an eye opener for many, I think. And I think as a sort of a boyhood Liverpool fan growing up, why wouldn't you want to move? And the kind of Newcastle friendly journalists, if you like, for lack of a better term, have all sort of said this week that his head has been turned, and that has been the phrase, hasn't it? Head has been turned. So it's why I think maybe this isn't necessarily dead in the water. I think Liverpool may have to move 1 or 2 around, and there's a conversation to be had on whether he is an upgrade on Luis Diaz. Personally, I'm not sure he is, but as someone to provide depth and quality to the squad, he would be a great addition if a spot does open up in that forward position. And does seem as though he had his heart set on a move.
So I was going to say, the next point you kind of touched on there was to go into a bit more detail then. For this to happen, if it does happen, if there's a world, it feels like it would only be if Luis Diaz left. I can't see any of the others leaving. I don't unless you can tell me differently. Liverpool have got enough. Well, they think they've got enough forwards. We'll see. But is this one dependent on the Barcelona or PSG stuff for Luis Diaz becoming a reality? Then they might make a big push for Anthony Gordon. Albeit there's no real necessity now for Newcastle to sell, probably in terms of the PSR deadline. So we might be on hold with this one again. Diaz at time recording still at the Copa America. Is that what you're saying there? It probably hinges upon that. If Anthony Gordon becomes a Liverpool player this summer, it's probably because Luis Diaz goes elsewhere.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I mean, you can maybe speculate that you could sort of tweak Gordon into a right-sided player, and then he would be a more than capable deputy for Mohamed Salah as and when needed across the season. But he's made his name off the left, hasn't he? He's become an England player off that side. He's been a big star for Newcastle, and that very much seems where he's best suited. So I would suggest that maybe a lot hinges on Luis Diaz, and there's been loads of speculation in Catalan press over Luis Diaz, and Liverpool not really looking to sell him at the moment. He's a player who they're planning for the future with him in the ranks, and we'll see what happens. I think maybe there's some speculation that Diaz is one of the lowest paid players in the squad, and maybe there's a desire to increase the bottom line from his camp, and maybe you could say that's fair enough given his importance to the squad, and the kind of disparity in the wages. If what you read is to be believed with the figures, it's always difficult to speculate, isn't it, on a player's wage. But Liverpool relaxed about the situation at the moment. Nothing doing on the Diaz selling point, but they're always looking, aren't they, behind the scenes on who can replace and who are the contingency plans and who are the kind of plans to become successors in certain positions, and Anthony Gordon, I'm sure, features. Well, we know he features as someone who could come in on that left side. So one to watch. But at the moment, as long as Diaz is a Liverpool player, I suggest that Liverpool are quite comfortable with their options.
Yeah, fair enough. Makes sense. Like I say, it feels to me like Newcastle were obviously aware that Liverpool liked the player. I think David Ornstein reported that was made known a while ago. Would that have just, do you think, or you can tell me, like, would that be Liverpool just getting like ducks in a row just in case something did happen in the summer, like Diaz left or Salah decided, right, I'm off, I don't want to sign this contract or whatever? Was that more maybe a case of Liverpool doing all their due diligence to see who's out there? We've heard talk of like Eze, for example, just checking in with his agent. It feels like Liverpool have done some background work, at least on wide forward players, perhaps because of maybe that there could be a player leaving, like Diaz.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, you're spot on. I think loads of this type of stuff goes on behind the scenes, doesn't it? There's a difference between, a club sort of quietly sounding out to players' agents and seeing what the situation is and the lay of the land, what the price tag might be, what the wages are, contract demands or requests and whatever else. There's a difference between that and then formally putting your foot forward with an offer to the club, and then you're into really accelerating the talks. And that's why we see a lot of the times these deals get wrapped up quite quick, because when the green light is given, it's all sort of already in place. So yeah, I'd suggest that it's probably been a similar situation with Anthony Gordon, and that's where Newcastle have known that Liverpool have been interested in their sort of desperation really to raise the funds. That's why Gordon has been offered, and Liverpool never had any intention of including Kwanzaa in any deal. Yeah, rightly so as well. I mean, they might have to give us some money as part of that deal if that was the case. Right, then we leave the Gordon stuff there for now. Obviously, if anything else comes up in due course, we'll have it covered here, of course, at Redmen TV. So keep an eye on the channel and all the socials, and of course, go and follow Paul on Liverpool Echo